Hello there, listeners. I'm Moosejaw Matt, and welcome to another episode on Nature and Science for Kids. I'm so glad you've joined us for today's mystery animal. I'm excited about this. I'm going to share some facts after the theme song, and then you will have the chance to guess what the animal is. Ready? Well, ready or not, here we go. We're going to get started with some basic, simple facts. I don't want to tell too much because you might guess what the animal is, but I'll give a little bit of information, and then you can guess what it is. This animal mostly lives on or below the ground rather than on trees. It is a rodent, which means it is a mammal. Every rodent is also a mammal. Mammals have fur, give birth to live young, produce milk, and are generally the cuddlier, cuter animals in the animal kingdom. And this animal, a lot of people could say the same thing about it. It makes a strong case. It has fur. It has extra large front teeth, also called incisors, and that's part of what makes it a rodent. This animal prefers grassy areas with scattered trees and bushes around. It's a fairly large size for a rodent, and although it doesn't live in trees, it can climb them fairly well, which a lot of people don't know. And they can also swim well. This animal spends much of its life alone. In winter, it retreats into a burrow to go into a deep sleep called hibernation. Well, there are our first set of facts. Let's play our game show. Guess the mystery animal. Listeners, I don't have anyone here in the studio with me, so you are going to be the contestants. Are you ready? Well, once again, ready or not, here we go. I'm going to give you some options, and your job is to say the animal you think it is. Option number 1. Is it a dolphin? Option number 2. Is it a mole? Option number 3 is the...
Moosejaw Matt. It's not a mystery. Everybody knows what the animal is.
They do?
Yeah. It's Groundhog Day.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I just had to break it to you.
Well, I guess you're right. Thank you. Yeah, you know what? You are right. Yeah, you are. It is Groundhog Day. It's probably not a surprise to anybody. Of course, the mystery animal is the groundhog. Shh. We were just seeing if people were paying attention. Well, now that we've cleared the air and everybody knows what we're talking about, let's get on with facts about the amazing groundhog. I'd like to start with the origin of the name. Origin means the beginning. Where in the world did the groundhog get its name? Is it because it lives in the ground? Is it because it's a hog? Well, actually, that's not the part I want to focus on. That makes sense. I want to talk about one of the other names it has. It's also called the woodchuck. You may have heard the phrase, how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? What is a woodchuck? Does it eat wood? Does it chuck? Does it throw wood? That doesn't make sense. That is where we can get to the origin of the name. The word woodchuck comes from the Algonquian Native Americans. We'll say that again. It comes from the Algonquian Native Americans. They said they were woodchuck, which means digger. It makes so much sense. We actually have a lot of words here in America that are Native American words. They're borrowed. Here in Pennsylvania, we have words like Tulpahawken and Susquehanna. Well, those are all Native American words. And woodchuck is one of them. It's not woodchuck, it's woochak. It's from the Algonquin Indians. How cool is that? So you knew some Native American words and you might not have even known. Well, there you go. So if somebody ever asks, why is it called a woodchuck? It's because woodchuck, it's not English. And it means digger, which makes sense because they're groundhogs. That one does make sense, groundhog. they live in the ground. They have burrows in the ground, and they're not pigs. The hog is more just because they're kind of fat rodents. But as we said earlier, even though they're fairly large for a rodent, they can climb well and swim well. Groundhogs, also known as woodchucks, are ground squirrels because they live mostly on the ground rather than in trees versus, say, a common gray squirrel, which we see often in yards. Another name that woodchucks or groundhogs go by is whistle pig. Now that one's really funny. Do you want to know why they're called whistle pig? Well, you can probably guess. Let's find out. So now you know why they're called whistle pigs. Actually, to be fair, that's the recording of a marmot. A marmot is a very close relative to what we consider woodchucks in the east. Marmots and woodchucks are almost identical. Marmots live at higher elevations and more in mountainous areas, but they are part of the same family. Woodchucks, groundhogs, marmots, they're all ground squirrels. Now it makes sense why they're called whistle pigs, because they whistle. I've had some experiences with ground squirrels, woodchucks, groundhogs. We had a place called Groundhog Lane. We would drive home from school, and there, in this stretch of about a half a mile along this grassy little hill, were, I think the most we counted was almost 20 groundhogs in half a mile. Burrow after burrow after burrow. So, while they are solitary type creatures, they may live alone. At the same time, they don't. These guys all lived in a string. They had their community. They may have lived in their own little dwellings and not been living as a cluster altogether, but they were still a community of ground squirrels, of woodchucks. And it was funny to see their bumbly little furry bodies. As the summer went on, they would eat and get larger and larger. And when they would run, they would kind of waddle, and they had extra skin, extra fat for hibernation on the side, and they would sort of waddle really quickly, their short little legs going. They're comical creatures. If you've ever seen one, you understand. If you haven't, well, check out a video. They're funny. Thank you, listeners, for joining as we've learned a little bit about woodchucks, groundhogs, woodchuck. Now you know where the word woodchuck comes from. I'm Moosejaw Matt. Until next time, keep exploring your world